Hello. I'm going to assume that we're live because my StreamYard is telling me we're live. Maybe someone in the chat can tell us if we're on or not. Because last month we had a problem where it didn't start. But this month, I'm thinking that hopefully it did. And I'm going to check right now. It says we have live here. And it looks like it's live. So I'm going to go with the idea that we're probably live right now. So welcome. This is the TSG Live Talking Trains show. I'm John, and this is Murf here. And as usual, we're back again, and hopefully with a good program for you today. We're going to have a guest all the way from down under.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I'm excited about this because this is a guy, if you've been paying attention to the channel for the past several years, Lucas Woodward might sound familiar. More recently, he was actually out here, actually sat right here at my table where we're sitting. And we hung out for a day and a half and did all kinds of cool train-related stuff, mostly looking at layouts because that's what is readily accessible in my area. And, he's been a contributor to the channel in other ways because he's been sending in catches of the month usually from Puffing Billy, which is a very popular or known railroad in Australia. So it was really cool to meet someone that I kind of knew but kind of didn't know. And, well, Lucas was on an epic trip out here in the United States about a month and a half ago, something like that. And he's going to be talking about that trip. And I'm very excited about that. So let me bring him on. Hopefully this will work. You never know what you're going to get on this show. Hey, there he is. Hi, Lucas.
Hello.
How are you doing? Yeah. So I gave a little bit of an introduction, as you saw. And you could give whatever other part of an introduction that you'd like to give, and then we can get our presentation brought up.
No worries.
I'm excited to hear about this because we didn't really talk a whole lot when you were here about what you'd been doing in the States. So,
Well, we're busy making our own chapter for that part of the trip, so we'll get to that a bit later on. So,
right now, remember, you got to talk a little slower because a lot of people listening won't get your accent.
I'll try.
Oh, I forgot to give you my Australian when I brought you up on the screen. Hey, mate.
There you go, mate.
I won't say the other lines that we were laughing at.
We can't have that on camera.
We'll talk about that later. So, but anyway, welcome. I'm really glad that you're able to make it. I know it's not too early in the morning over there, but this ought to be. Yeah, so this will be good, though. I've been looking forward to it since we decided to. Had I known that we were going to end up doing a live show together, I would have probably talked to you about it when you were here. But this is really kind of came up, I don't know, afterwards, I guess. So thank you for coming. I definitely appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to share today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, John. Yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to this. For those who don't know, and Murf, sorry.
I was going to say he's interested too, but I'm doing all the talking.
Yeah. As usual, he's taking up all the time.
Yeah, I'll just have go.
For those who don't know me, my name's Lucas Woodward. I'm 20 years old, and I'm currently a volunteer at the Puffing Billy Railway just outside of Melbourne in the state of Victoria, which is pretty much in the southeast corner of Australia. I've been a volunteer there on the books for 10 years, but I've been active for about 4 or 5. I've been around railways for my entire 20 years I've been on this earth. And I've been a fan of American railways for probably about 14 years or so, since I was about 6 years old. And this trip to the States back in June and July was basically the culmination of that interest. So, I think we're ready for the slides, John.
Oh, let's bring that up then. Hey, look at that. Did you mute yourself?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Slides don't seem to be up. Hang on.
Oh, you can't see that on the screen?
No.
Oh, that's odd. How about, hang on a second. Let me see. Maybe I'm doing something wrong here, but it's nice and big on the screen right now.
I can't see it at all. I can see me now. Oh, hello. Yeah, it looks like in the chat, John, that no one's seen the slides at all. Now I can't even see John. Hang on. Well, this is an interesting turn of events. Yeah, that's all I'm seeing too, Dave. Oops. Sydney's come up. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Hey, it was just a little emergency means I have to be on the camera now. So last month we had a little bit of a glitch when we started the show for some reason, and this month we had a tiny bit of a glitch, and now they got kicked out, and I guess it's our show now, Lucas.
We've taken over the show.
I know. I think I can add your slides to the thing. So let me try.
There we go.
There we go.
Excellent. All righty.
And I'm going to just switch it to full slide view.
No worries.
And then I guess I can advance them for you.
All right. So, yeah, the Great American Train Adventure. Basically the culmination of about 14 months or so. Pretty much, from April last year that I started planning this trip. And, yeah, went right across the entire state, the entire country, I should say, sorry. And, yeah, it was a very, very big trip. So I think next slide, please, Sid. So a bit about me. So as I said before, I'm volunteer at the Puffing Billy Railway, and I'm currently qualified as a guard, which is the Australian equivalent of conductor over in the US. And I've been doing that since the start of 2023. And I'm now training to be a fireman. And the photo in the middle there is of myself on board a Bay Garrett. And we've got two of them at the Puffing Billy Railway. And, yeah, they're wonderful machines, and really enjoyed volunteering there. My other interest, I do live steam G-scale model railroading. So with the prototype being the Victorian Railways in narrow gauge. So that's my Puffing Billy locomotive 6A. And above that, I also work on 12-inch gauge steam, not far from where I am, at a place called the Linton Railway. And it's about 1 mile of track on a 20-acre property. So, yeah.
Cool. So have you been to the United States before this trip, or?
No, this was my second time. So June 2019, I went with my family to Florida and Virginia, and we didn't do a huge amount of train stuff, but we went to we saw some CSX trains in Central Florida and then up in Virginia as well. So yeah, next slide. So yeah, another thing I enjoy doing at the Puffing Billy Railway is taking photos and videos, and these are some of my night photos I took. Left one is of 12A in 2022. The middle one is of 8A in middle of last year, and those two engines are basically what are like the poster boys, if you like, for the Puffing Billy Railway. If you think of the railway, you think of the classic Baldwin NA class engines, built between 1900 and 1915. And there were 17 of them built, and luckily we've got 6 of them still at the railway, with 5 of them in service still. Then on the right is another photo of our Bay Garrett locomotive from South Africa, NGG 16 number 129. Next slide, please, Sydney. So yeah, the origins of the American trip pretty much date back to about April of last year, as I said. I met Mike May at the Puffing Billy Railway. He's a engineer at the Durango and Silverton narrow gauge railroad, and he's been a fan of the railway for 20 years plus. And I met him on this trip with our Climax locomotive in April 2023, as I said, and he'd been at the railway for a month volunteering, and I said to him quietly at that time, like, "Hey Mike, do you reckon I could do a similar sort of thing but at Durango?" And the one thing he never said was no, which I'm very glad about. So with that idea in mind, we agreed that I'd try and get there by June of 24. And sure enough, I was able to do it. So over the following 14 months or so, there was a lot of planning and a lot of preparing to get the trip underway. And the initial idea was to actually work there for the summer. But it was just going to be too hard with the like the immigration laws that the US has. It would just be way too hard to even do it for just the summer. Next slide, please.
Oh, is that?
Oh, hang on. No, I've got it. Sorry.
Are we
there we go.
the slides?
My apologies. So yeah, this was the other part of my trip that I really wanted to do was I've always wanted to cross America by train on Amtrak. And the reason for that was back in about 2017, about the same time I first watched TSG Multimedia, I also found a couple of videos about riding on Amtrak trains. And I was like, I really want to do that when I'm a bit older. So I decided to incorporate into also, as well as visiting Durango, also trying to cross the US twice. So going from west to east and then east to west. So they were the two big things I wanted to do on this trip. And it was a very hard, process of getting it done. But I'm glad it worked out the way it did.
Did you have problems, Lucas, like planning because the routes are not as continuous as one might expect?
Short answer is yes, but it was also like things I'd also sort of expected as well, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So like there were some bits I had to readjust where I was going to be so I could be on a particular train which only ran a couple of days a week, which I'll get to later in the thing. So yeah, this is the route of my trip, starting in San Francisco on June the 6th and going to Durango, and I'd be there for 2 weeks in Colorado. So catching the California Zephyr from Emeryville right through to Grand Junction, going down to Durango for the 2 weeks. And then from Grand Junction, I'd be heading, continuing east on the Zephyr through to Chicago on June the 23rd. And then my plan was from Chicago going to DC on the Capital Limited and then south to Ashland, Virginia from there. And we'll get to the rest of the trip a bit later, but that was the current premise.
That's not a train.
No, that is not a train. That was my plane heading from Melbourne to San Francisco, a 14-hour flight, and not the most comfortable ways of spending it going in economy. But anyway, it was good to go direct from Melbourne because I didn't really want to change anywhere. So yeah, the 14-hour flight from Melbourne
for the Amtrak part.
Pardon me?
Said it's good it didn't spoil you for the Amtrak part.
So yeah, 14-hour flight on June the 6th through to San Francisco. And then from there, I caught BART to MacArthur, and then I caught a free bus through to Emeryville, which is where I was staying for the first night. And because this is the one bit I poorly planned, and I actually got there about 4 hours early for my check-in at the hotel. So I decided to watch trains instead. So got a couple of freight trains and a few Amtrak Californias as well, which was good fun. Including some classic F-59s. And this is my view from the hotel at Emeryville. And this was a southbound tanker train with a couple of SD-59s from memory. Is that correct, John?
They look like, if they're SD-59s, they're the new SD-59X.
Yep.
I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They look kind of like
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was quite the view there, and this is later that evening when the Zephyr had arrived. You can see it in the background there. It was one heck of a view, that's for sure.
I've stayed at that hotel prepped to take the Zephyr across to Denver before.
Yep.
My wife actually booked it on that side, and we're still married. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I knew the hotel was going to be there, but I didn't realize I was going to get a view as good as that. So
how lucky is that?
Yeah.
See, so you could have made something up, Lucas, and told everybody you actually planned it that way.
that one I can't lie. So this is next morning. So from Emeryville, it was going to be on the California Zephyr, as I said, and I got up way too early because of the jet lag, so more trains, and then at about 8:30, the train surprisingly departed on time.
Well, and usually at the origination point, they're not usually late there. They're usually late somewhere down the line, because I don't know if you realized this, Lucas, when you planned it, but Amtrak runs almost exclusively on private rails that belong to Class 1 freight railroads, and that means they're at the mercy of the Class 1 dispatchers. And frankly, our Class 1s are more interested in making money moving freight than they are with passengers getting to their destinations, quote, on time.
Yeah, quite on quite.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Please proceed.
No, you're right. So yeah, heading north on the Zephyr. Really, really pretty piece of track. I just wish I was on the other side, because I forgot that San Pablo Bay was on that side. But yeah, I was in a sleeper for this bit, my own little private roomette. These shots are arriving into Sacramento, where I'll be in about 6 weeks' time, and then passing through Roseville, and then crossing over Donner Pass, which is one of the most beautiful pieces of track I've ever been on. And I'm sure a lot of people watching, and I know you John, have done it. I'm assuming you have done it too, Murf.
Yeah, I've taken this road, I think, 3 times.
Yeah, awesome.
It's really pretty over Donner Pass.
Oh, it's absolutely stunning. My favorite bit was going down the Truckee River Canyon in the top right corner, as you can see.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Did you experience the mooning?
I did.
It's the sights of the trip.
you know, it's funny. There are places all along the entire route where people do that. People off on the side and rivers will flash the train when it goes by. It's funny.
That's right. Yep. There was only one place I saw it, though.
It seems strange that people would do that, but I mean, I guess whatever.
If it's a tradition, they may as well.
Right?
Yeah.
Who are we to argue with tradition?
If you're really lucky, you can see some bald eagles and that kind of stuff too along that path.
Yeah.
Which is
I think I saw a couple, but I can't remember where. Anyway, so this is overnight we went through Nevada and Utah, and I woke up just as we were climbing up Soldier Summit, and this shot was at about probably 5 a.m. because my jet lag was still completely stuffed. So it was a really cool way to wake up watching these two P42s working their heart out up the grade there. And yeah, went up Soldier Summit, as I said, and past the location where I saw the Mooners. And we arrived into Grand Junction at about 9:30 in the morning on Friday, June the 7th. And this is where Mike May picked me up, and we drove south from Grand Junction, Colorado, down to Durango from there.
I've only had a chance to meet Mike one time, and he seems like a really great guy.
Yeah, he's a wonderful, wonderful guy. So yeah, of course, being a train adventure, we decided to go see some trains coincidentally on the way down. So we stopped by at Cimarron, just outside of Montrose, where the old Black Canyon route of the Rio Grande ran, and they've got a C16 on display on the middle of this bridge, right in the middle of the canyon. The line closed in about 1949, and at Cimarron itself, they have a little display showing what the old railway station used to look like, even though it's been gone for 70 plus years nowadays. From there, we drove south to Ridgeway and checked out the little railway museum they had open there. And it was very, very interesting stuff they're doing there. A lot of old Rio Grande Southern equipment and stuff like that. And yeah, they're doing great stuff there, and free entry too. So I was pretty happy about that.
That's always helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. From there, we went down to Ouray, one of the most beautiful towns I've ever been to. Mountainsides right on each side of the main street. Pretty rare in Australia to have that. And then we drove over Red Mountain Pass, which is the only place that what's his name? Otto Mears never got a railway over. He was trying to get a line from Silverton through to Ouray, but it was never going to happen. Just way too treacherous. But he did get a road over there, and that's what we went over. And then we drove south from Silverton when we eventually got there at about 3:30 in the afternoon. And we drove down to Rockwood on the Durango and Silverton, and got to see my first train of at the DNS, which was their little K28 number 473, heading back from Silverton to Durango. And it was a pretty cool way to end the day, chasing it back down to Durango, and a great first experience of the DNS.
Nice shots.
Thank you.
Great composition.
So next day, we rode the Durango and Silverton all the way up to Silverton and back, and we had K28 476 and K37 493, and what an incredible piece of railroad this is. One of the best I've ever been on, and it's probably going to be number one for a very, very long time. And I was very lucky to get a cab ride on the way back down the hill on the K28, and it's still probably up there as one of my favorite experiences. Well, one of my favorite experiences on this trip. The scenery, the locomotives. I loved picking out the similarities on this day of what was similar between Puffing Billy and DNS, and I found a lot more than I thought.
Well, what are some of the things that you found that are similarities?
I
mean, besides the obvious, right? Trains, right? But
well, yeah, of course. It was pretty much like they ran them very similar to what we did, except the oil firing. That's a very exclusive to them at the moment. But like operating the engines was very similar to what we do. The operating practices of, despite having 3 people in operations on the train instead of 1 like what we have, they still ran it extremely similar. You had one bloke in charge of the whole train. You had 2 assisting, basically doing the same thing, and then you had your driver and fireman. We do the same thing, just with a driver and fireman and a guard. but it was exactly the same apart from that, which I found pretty cool.
You were saying that aside also from oil firing, do they use coal almost exclusively at Puffing Billy? I know there's that one that's supposed to be oil fired that you told me about when you were here.
Yeah.
Is it coal? I didn't know that.
Apart from that, it's coal. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought they were. I didn't know what they were. So.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah. All coal burners except one wood burner and one oil burner.
Yeah, and if you had been here, I'm sure Mike must have told you this, but if you had been here a few years ago, those also would have been coal. So
absolutely, yeah.
But I think they just finished the conversion to oil on the last one, like within the past year or so.
Yeah, it was like started this year. They withdrew it from service.
So it was this year. Yeah. And you know the story behind that, right? There was a big fire up there, and I don't know if it was true, but I know they got blamed for it. The DNS got blamed for it. So
they did get blamed for it, but I don't think there'll ever be proof that they actually did it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you just go with whatever the most obvious explanation was, and that would be well, it's coal fired.
Yeah.
Trains in the mountains. So more likely than not, Anyway, sorry. Please proceed, sir.
No worries. So a couple of days later, we chased the Silverton train with both K28s leading at this time, and I got some of the best shots I've ever gotten on video that day, and we chased it all the way to Silverton and back, and it was very, very cool seeing the train climbing through the mountains and going along the Animas River Canyon. My favorite shot's probably the one on the bottom right, coming out the canyon, approaching Silverton. I've never gotten a shot with more mountains in it than that.
Yeah, that's great. And if Mike was your driver, then he probably knows all of the spots.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, there's a couple that aren't actually publicly accessible. So, yeah, we were very lucky to get the shots we did.
Sure.
And this is coming back from Silverton on a place called the High Line, which I'm sure plenty of people have seen. This is the shelf track, so the lesser known, but in my opinion, the prettier of the two sections on it. And this is the K28 climbing the hill, climbing the only grade on the southbound run. And it was a pretty cool way to end the day.
Did you catch that, Lucas, hiking in from Rockwood, or how did you get
to
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we walked in from Rockwood.
Okay. So with this, is this as you walk in from Rockwood, there's the first left curve, and then it turns right, and then it turns left and goes on to this section. Is this looking down toward that section from that furthest spot on the edge of the cliff?
Or no, it's a little further down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. So you had to walk the right of way, didn't you? Because isn't it just shelf there?
Well, yeah, for bits that we absolutely had to, yes.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
We avoided it as much as we could.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, I'm not suggesting that anybody else should do that, because
that's right.
You had Mike with you, and I'm sure he knows the schedule like the back of his hand. So you weren't ever in danger by doing that. But that's not to say that anybody else should be doing that. That's all.
Yeah.
That's cool though. That's a cool shot. I didn't even know you could hike in that far to get something like this. That's great.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I wasn't going to go any further.
Right? Yeah. Well, I mean, at some point you'd get stuck on the shelf because there's
that's right. Exactly. Yep.
There is no exit strategy.
Yeah.
The following day I got to ride on the Cascade Canyon trip with the K37, which is a very, very pretty, very, very pretty run, and that engine is massive. I cannot believe it's on narrow gauge, and it was a standard gauge engine. And I was planning on just riding it 2 days in a row, but I got an offer from one of the engineers to ride on it in the cab the following day. And very, very cool engine. And I've never seen a narrow gauge engine with steps up to the driver and fireman seat. Sorry, engineer and fireman seat.
What did you call him? I didn't notice.
Driver and fireman.
The driver, yeah. Well, I think people understand what you're talking about, being from where you're from.
Yeah, that's right. So, and incredibly, I got to ride in the cab 3 days in a row, and I'm very, very lucky to do that. This is one we always planned with Mike driving. We were on board number 476, which at the time, and I think it currently still has it, it's got its diamond stack and box headlight from a movie filming that happened back in May.
Oh.
So it's currently looking a bit different to what the K28 should look like, but also a bit historic because bit historic because they had these fitted back in the 50s when they were doing movies all the time on the railroad. And this is a photo of me in front of 476 in my full puffing billy gear because I thought I'd better represent the home team while I was there.
I was going to say, who's that tall bloke?
Yeah, that was one of the coolest experiences on a steam locomotive I've ever had. With double-headed K28s going up the mountain. Man, doesn't get better than that.
Spoken like a true foamer.
That's right. And the following day, I did it all again, just on 473 this time, and with Mike driving again. And, on the Silverton doubleheader, and it was about 30 degrees Celsius this day, and I paid for it a bit. It was very hot that day.
Well, maybe you should tell people what that is in Fahrenheit, because we don't use that Celsius thing.
Not 90 in Fahrenheit.
90, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's always hot inside the cab, but when it's hot outside and it's hot inside the cab, you really do feel it.
Absolutely, yeah. And then this is coming back down the canyon that afternoon, and the weather couldn't have been any more better than that. It was absolutely perfect that day.
Yeah, that's really beautiful weather.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the best weather I had during my whole visit to Durango.
Did you end up getting, did they let you do any firing or anything while you were running in the trains, or were you just there to observe, or what?
Majority of the time was there to observe, but when we're up in Silverton, I got to have a little go on 473, and it's a very responsive engine, I'll say that.
Yeah, that's cool.
The injectors are a lot more forgiving on that thing than they are on the puffing billy engines.
Do you think that's purely a size thing, or do you think it has to do with just the way it's tuned or the way it was built, or what do you think? As someone who knows steam.
It would be time periods of when they were built. Because there's a 25-year difference between when the first NAs were built and the first K28s were built.
So the K28s are newer, or are they older?
They're a lot newer.
Oh, okay. So the technology...
I only turned 100 last year.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar with the equipment at Puffing Billy, so...
Yeah, no, that's all right. All good. So the injectors on the NAs are... a lot of them are good, but there are very, very finicky ones as well.
Right.
Anyway, so I got to do one last ride on the DNS about 2 or 3 days later, and I was lucky enough to go back down the mountain, down the canyon in the Silver Vista car, which is their observation car that they usually have on one of the Silverton trains. And, yeah, very lucky to go on that. Then the following day, we did one last rail fanning day, seeing K37 493 on the Cascade coming into Durango. And then we went up to the High Line to see the former White Pass and Yukon diesels coming back from Silverton.
Yeah, those are also pretty cool.
They're very, very cool. To have Alcos that new on narrow gauge is very, very rare.
Yeah, I got to see one of those running when I was out there a couple of years ago. It's pretty neat.
It was green still back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was green and yellow.
Yeah, the last one got repainted when I was there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't remember which number it was, but it was still pretty cool to see, though, because like you said, right, you don't see we don't see Alcos hardly at all anyway. So to see them on a narrow gauge is even cooler.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we don't have any Alcos on narrow gauge, full stop. So
yeah,
to see that was very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, coincidentally, this was June the 21st, and that very night was when the massive landslide came down on the line and blocked it for a week and a bit. So I was very lucky I timed this trip to end just as that happened.
Wow.
So that the bottom right photo of 480 coming back into Durango was the last train before the landslide hit that night.
Wow. Yeah, that would have been a real pisser if you'd gone out all the way out there, all out, and ended up arriving on January 20 or June 22nd or something like that.
Yeah, that would not have been great, but yeah, it was. I'm lucky that I went when I did.
Yeah.
So one thing I'll mention as well is Mike's incredible White Pass and Yukon layout, and it's been featured on. It was briefly featured on Chasing Trains a few years ago.
Yep.
But the electronics, the details that Mike's put into the layout is just insane, and I was very lucky to get a couple of goes at running his layout, and really appreciate Mike's time and letting me stay with him for 2 weeks while I was at Durango, and it was an incredible experience.
We should probably mention also that Mike May is published in the Narrow Gauge and Short Line Gazette with this layout. As a matter of fact, this layout was the reason why I got to meet him that night, right, in Durango, because our friend Trevor, that's another person you should probably meet sometime, Lucas, maybe when you're out here again.
Absolutely.
But he's all the way up in Oregon now, so it might be kind of hard to do unless you make a trip specifically up there. But Trevor somehow knew about Mike and set up a chance, to go look at his layout. And I kind of joke about it now because Mike's a bachelor, and he's a bachelor because his layout goes into the kitchen.
I wish I had a shot of that.
Yeah, no, I think I might have showed that on the Chasing Trains episode, but I don't remember now.
That whole Skagway wharf dock is actually removable because it's on the kitchen table.
Right? Is it the table or the kitchen counter? But the point is,
kitchen counter.
Yeah, it goes into the kitchen, which I thought was pretty funny. And in case anybody's interested in catching a glimpse of that, you can look for the Chasing Trains epic trip of 2021, I think. And it's when we're in Durango. It might be like episode 4, 5, or 6. I don't remember, but it's worth watching. I mean, if you can put up with me and Gary and Alvin the whole time.
I've watched it a few times. It's really good.
Well, thanks for watching.
Next day, driving June 22nd by this point, I was driving back up to Grand Junction on the bus. Not the greatest experience in the world, but got to go through some very, very pretty scenery following the old Rio Grande Southern a lot of the way up there. So that was pretty cool in that sense. And back in Grand Junction at about midday. Oh, hang on. There we go. So stayed overnight in Grand Junction, and then I was on board the California Zephyr next day. We're heading east over the Rocky Mountains with these 2 P-42s on the front. We had a heritage unit leading, which was very, very cool, and a P-42 in the Phase 7 colours as well, which I found pretty interesting that we had 2 specially painted locos on the same train, which I don't think happens very often. Pepsi can. That's it, Dave.
I just caught my first Phase 7 P-42 this past weekend over at the SBHRS. That was
cool.
Cool. Yeah, hadn't seen one before that. It would happen to be leading the Coast Starlight the morning I was there.
Right. yeah, the very, very, very nice color scheme. That.
Yeah, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we during the entire day we were going through the Rocky Mountains and the four canyons that the California Zephyr is most known for. So Glenwood Canyon, Little Gore Canyon, and Upper Gore Canyon as well, and then Byers Canyon. Absolutely stunning pieces of track, and I'm very impressed that the Rio Grande actually got their main line through there. It's very, very pretty. And then went through Moffat Tunnel that evening in the top left corner. It's not the greatest of shots because I did a screen grab off the video that I took, and yeah, longest time I've been in a tunnel before, and I was very impressed.
Yeah, what does it take, about 9 or 10 minutes to get through that
10
thing?
minutes.
10 minutes, yep.
Yeah.
And then went down the Continental Divide from there and into Denver. When we went around the Big Ten curve, we passed a westbound oil train with a couple of Canadian Pacific engines leading, which I thought was pretty interesting, that I could get four different paint schemes in one photo. So I was pretty happy with that, and that's bottom left bottom second from left.
Mm-hmm.
And then from Denver, it was overnight through Nebraska, and I woke up just near Omaha next morning. Got to see my first big boy in DD40, which are the welcome signs to Omaha, which I think is the best welcome sign in the world.
Again, spoken like a true farmer.
That's right, yeah.
What could be better than trains?
That's right, mate. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but if you missed all of Nebraska, you missed all that corn.
That's why they that in Iowa and Illinois.
But I was going to say that's why they go through there at night, Murph.
It's okay. Iowa will second it, and Illinois will do even more of it.
Yep. So the majority of that was corn and corn and corn and corn.
Well, it's quite a contrast to all the mountains you just got through, isn't it?
That's right. And yeah, we arrived into Chicago at about 3:30 p.m. And this is where basically everything went out the window. My original plan was to go on the Capital Limited from Chicago to Washington D.C., but at about 4:30, there's a shot in Union Station. At about 4:30 p.m., I got an email from Amtrak saying that the Capital Limited had been cancelled. So pretty much I was stranded in Chicago for about an hour or so. It was a little scary that was the case, but I was within an hour and waiting in a line for a majority of that. I was able to get tickets on the Lakeshore Limited through to New York. So I wasn't actually planning on going to New York. I'd always wanted to go, but it wasn't going to be on my itinerary for this trip. But sure enough, because of the cancellation, I was able to go. So at about 9:30 that night, about 4 hours after I was supposed to be departing Chicago, I was leaving on a different train in coach class, which wasn't the most comfortable experience, but it was a very, very cool detour. Sorry. We got to Albany, New York at about 3 p.m. the following afternoon, and this is the furthest point from Australia I'd ever gone, and I did a screen grab on my phone to show how far I was, and it was 16,994 kilometers from home. So it was a long way.
Wow. And
yeah,
that must have been kind of stressful. I mean, don't take this the wrong way. Being only 20,
yeah,
and having that kind of a wrench thrown into this thing that you've planned probably for months.
yep,
That would be very stressful. Like I would feel, like sometimes I have these dreams where I'm trying to get home and I just can't get home. You know, that's like a nightmare, right?
It was a very long 24 hours. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
At the same time, you are on a train.
That's right. So I was happy about that.
Yeah. When you take Amtrak, I generally figure in an extra day for missed connections and that kind of thing. And there was one time coming back from Denver, we got to Grand Junction and got stopped. And the next morning we went back to Denver, and then we took the northern route up through through Wyoming and down through the Wasatch to get through.
Oh, right.
I was the only guy on the train on the way back down in Denver going, wee, kind of. So it was like, I'm seeing more. So, and I get to go down the actual, like, real Transcon. This is great. So,
the proper Transcon, not the Moffat route.
Yeah.
But they also say that, though, right? That when you take a train anywhere, don't do it to get where you're going. Do it to take the train, right?
Yeah.
So
that's my big recommendation to everyone. Don't do it if you're actually trying to get somewhere.
Right.
Yep.
So at Albany, one cool thing was changing over from standard diesel locomotives to the dual mode engines they've got, where they can turn the prime movers off and run them on third rail so they can go into New York Penn Station, and that's what's the in the top left corner. So we ran along the Hudson River in the early evening, and we got into New York pretty much on time at about 6:30 p.m. and gave me about 6 hours to walk around New York City and see as many sights as I could. It was the only non-train thing I did, but I was glad it was in New York, and I knew where I was going.
that's pretty cool. I've never had a chance to walk around New York like that. Look at that place.
Yeah, it's
so crowded.
Incredible. So got to see the Empire State Building and Grand Central Terminal, and then went to Times Square to finish it off with all the billboards at night. That was very, very cool to end my visit like that. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's something a lot of us only see in the movies, huh?
Pretty much. Yep. Then we walked back. Then I walked back up to New York Penn Station at about probably 10 p.m. because my next train was due to depart at 12:30 in the morning.
Oh boy,
that was not fun, but it got me to where I wanted to, so I was glad about that. It was very hard though to sleep in coach class with a broken recliner. I only got about 2 hours sleep that night, but at about 9:30 the following morning, I was in Ashland, Virginia, which a few people will probably know from Virtual Railfan. And I've known about it since 2017 as well, when they first started doing the live streams. And you can see in the top corner, second photo, you can see what my parents' view was from their TV when I was getting off the train.
Oh, did they take that picture? That's funny.
They did, yeah. They took it and then sent it to me pretty much straight away. I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot to wave at the camera.
That's great.
That's funny. So you remembered even with just 2 hours of sleep?
Yeah, I'm impressed I did remember, to be honest.
Yeah, when it was all said and done, how much of a delay did that detour cause on your arrival?
12 hours.
Oh, so it's not terrible.
I was impressed it was only that, to be honest. I was anticipating going to be like a couple of days, to be honest. But
did they ever tell you why the original trip was canceled? What caused that train to be canceled?
They told us pretty much straight away. What happened was there was a fire in West Virginia.
Oh,
and the bridge at Harper's Ferry had caught fire.
Oh, yeah. Don't want to be trying to go over that.
No, so that line was closed for, I think it was like a couple of days. Like there was like 4 or 5 different capitals that didn't actually run. So I was glad I was able to go on the lakeshore and still get to where I was supposed to go to. So yeah, anyway, that afternoon, after I'd gotten some sleep in the hotel, I spent the afternoon watching a whole heap of trains go down the middle of the main street in Ashland. Ashland, the railway line that goes through Ashland was formerly the Richmond, Fredericksburg and Potomac Railroad, or the RF&P, and it was pretty much like a feeder railroad. So you could get trains that were heading down to Florida from DC, basically directly at about 70 mile an hour. And trains still do that on that piece of track, and double tracked for the whole way, and they get about probably 40 trains a day or so.
Jeez, that's a hot spot.
So yeah, I wasn't bored, that's for sure. And the good thing with it being so close to New York is that being to Washington, is the Northeast regional passenger trains stop there, and there's probably about 15 of them that go through, heading down to Richmond or Newport News or Norfolk. They all go down that way towards the Atlantic coast. So this is another whole heap of trains that went through during the evening, including a Norfolk Southern engine running on CSX trackage, hauling an Amtrak train, which I thought was the most shambolic thing I've ever seen, but it was pretty cool. Apparently the Amtrak engine failed.
Yeah, that happens sometimes too.
This evening was also the first time I got to see one of the new Chargers in the bottom left corner. One of the new long distance Chargers, I should say, leading the Silver Star headed for Miami. And then the last train of this day, because I was still pretty stuffed after a very long 48 hours, was the southbound auto train, which is basically takes passengers and their cars from Washington down to Orlando, which is a very, very cool way of getting cars off the road, in my opinion. And those trains are massive, like they're 30 cars long minimum.
Yeah, I've never seen one of those in person.
It's quite the sight. I've seen 4 of them now, and it's very, very cool. So next day was just was seeing a whole heap of trains going through Ashland, like I'd planned. I'd originally planned to do 2 days in Ashland, but 2 full days, I should say. But because of the delay, I could only do 1 full day. So these are a whole heap of photos that I got when I was there. A lot of these are screen grabs from the videos I took. So whole heap of freight, a lot of Amtrak, and into the afternoon, the sunlight was getting pretty good for these shots. So we got one of the new Phase 7 painted engines again, an auto train, and then a double stack container train through Ashland as well to end the daylight shots. And then I hung around for the evening to see the last couple of Northeast regional trains come through, and because I like taking night photos, and was very happy with the ones I got.
Hey, Lucas, on that auto train, do you recall how much power they had on the head end of that?
On all the runs that I saw, they had 2 engines, two P40s. So
Yeah,
2 of the older 4,000 horsepower engines.
Sure, just curious. I've never seen one. I thought maybe they'd add a 3rd engine, but I guess not.
They sometimes do, like especially during like the Christmas period, they definitely do. So they could add another P42, or they could even have one of their Dash 8 engines as 3rd engine.
Yeah.
I think from memory during that week, one of the Dash 8s even led, which was very rare. So yeah, it was. I wish I saw that, but I'm glad with what I did see. So this is the following morning, and I was on board Amtrak again, heading for ultimate destination of Roanoke, Virginia, which meant I had to head north to Alexandria, and then southwest through the Shenandoah Valley through to Roanoke. And I got there at about 10 p.m. Amtrak only had services running to Roanoke. They only started in about 2017. So there's a period of about 47 years or so where they didn't actually have passenger service regularly through to Roanoke. It was a whole heap of government funding that got the trains back to Roanoke. So the whole reason I went to Roanoke, though, was to see these two beautiful engines, Norfolk and Western A-Class 1218 and J-Class 611, which were both at the Virginia Museum of Transportation. And dream come true seeing these two engines. And I wish 611 was running, but I was just glad to see these engines. I've been a fan of the Norfolk and Western for a very long time, and it was wonderful to see these engines. And that afternoon, I got to check out the O. Winston Link Museum in the old Roanoke passenger station. Some of the most amazing photos I've ever seen of steam trains at night done by O. Winston Link. If you haven't seen his work yet, you've got to see it. It's incredible. Next morning, I was back on Amtrak again. So I'd only been there for a day, and this was June the 30th. And on that day, to give you a bit of a clue with what happened at the end of the trip, Union Pacific Big Boy 4014 was leaving Cheyenne this day, and I wanted to see it in California. So this is how much time I didn't have to get back. So that day it was back on the Cardinal heading back to Roanoke to Charlottesville was on a regional, and then from Charlottesville to Chicago it was on the Cardinal in a roomette again, and going through the Shenandoah Valley, and very, very pretty piece of track, and got to see an 0614 when we were going through Clifton Forge, Virginia. Unfortunately, the whole reason I caught the Cardinal and altered my dates to be able to go on it because it runs 3 days a week. Unfortunately, the whole reason that I went on it was to go through the New River Gorge in daylight, because it was about the summer solstice. It was about the right time to do it heading east, but because of a tree falling down, blocking the line in a pretty remote section of the line, we were stuck for 3.5 hours, and we didn't get going until about 10 p.m. So the whole chance of seeing it going through the New River Gorge was gone after that. So next day, July the 1st, we went through Indiana and into Illinois, and we arrived into Chicago at about 1 p.m. And because of the delay, which is 3.5 hours in the end, I only had about an hour to change over from the Cardinal to the Southwest Chief headed for Los Angeles. But I was only going to La Plata, Missouri. So that evening we were heading through Illinois, Iowa, going through Fort Madison, where this Santa Fe steam engine is on display. And then we arrived into La Plata, Missouri at about 7:30 p.m. And I found one of my favorite places to watch freight trains. This spot is on the BNSF Transcon, and it has 2 Amtrak services a day, but it has 65 freight trains a day.
Wow.
And it was absolutely constant. Like, not even 5 minutes after I'd gotten off the Southwest Chief, a Union Pacific double stacker went through at about 60 miles an hour. And the following 4 days were pretty much all just watching trains go by. I met a couple of international rail fans that were there for an event that had happened in La Plata for the following weekend, because Virtual Rail Fan has a camera there as well, and they were having like a little meet and greet. So there was a bloke from the UK, a lady from Canada, and also another guy from Australia, from Sydney. So it was really cool to meet up with them, and it showed how popular virtual railfanning has gotten in the last few years because of them streaming to YouTube. So the entire day was spent watching a whole heap of freight trains go by, and my friend Simon from Sydney had claimed the viewing platform up at the old bridge for Australian sovereignty, as you can say.
Yeah, I noticed the flag. I thought maybe you brought that.
No, that wasn't me. That evening, there was quite the heck of a storm that came in just as the Southwest Chief was coming through. It actually stopped freight trains for a couple of hours because of how dangerous the storm was. It was quite the experience. That it was dark at 8:30, which I hadn't seen in a few weeks. So,
Yeah.
How long? Hey, Lucas, how long did it take you to get acclimated to the time here?
It only took getting acclimated to the time only took probably 2 or 3 days, but the jet lag was still there for a couple more than that.
Yeah, just curious.
That's all good. No worries. Next day, July 3rd, was literally all just watching trains, including we got some foreign power, being some Norfolk Southern units on a double stack train, which was being diverted because of the storm the previous night. So there was damage to a bridge, apparently. These are some of the other shots I got during the rest of the day. And as you can see, that Amtrak train came in at exactly the same time as the previous night, but there was no storm this time, so it was actually in daylight.
Mm-hmm.
And then next day was July the 4th. And what better way to spend Independence Day than watching trains again? It was from about 9 a.m. to about 10 p.m. that I was watching trains. And even though it was a public holiday, it was quite the parade of trains still because it's the Transcon. We got a whole heap of BNSF, a few more Norfolk Southern engines, and some of the high priority Union Pacific double stack trains as well. And I left my mark in the viewing platform up near the station. And I had to change the date around so you Americans could actually understand it.
I wonder if it's still there.
I'm pretty sure it is, because it's pretty much a tradition that whoever visits the viewing platform puts their mark on the inside. So there's probably about 30 or 40 of them in there. So the only free vacant bit of the wall that I could do was actually a lot taller than me, as you can see, which is quite a surprise.
Oh, you can see the other writing just over his shoulder there.
Yeah.
Well, or you could just put your name in your phone number in the restroom.
The amount of times I saw that was hilarious. And then that evening was probably lighting wise the best of the whole trip. It was absolutely stunning when the chief came through, and then and because it was July the 4th, the audio from when the trains were going by was getting all interrupted by fireworks.
Oh,
true.
Probably people watching wondering why the train's backfiring so much.
Yeah, that's right. It was pretty cool though. It was a good way to spend July 4th. And this is a photo with Bob Cox, who is the station caretaker for La Plata, and he's also one of the he's also on the board of directors for Virtual Railfan as well. Huh. You can see in the photo on the right, there's the remnants of fireworks going off in the background.
So this is a safe place to be actually viewing trains as opposed to a suspicious place?
This is a very safe place to watch trains, definitely.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's a small town Midwest. It was just brilliant. I had so much fun here. And this was on my last day at my last day at La Plata, sorry. Spent the entire day again watching a whole heap of trains going by, and the bottom right one was probably my favorite shot from the whole visit. Is another westbound stack train race through, and then these are the last four trains that went through, and the final one was the geometry train going through with one grain hopper and one passenger car, and that was it. It was pretty funny. I think that was the only train that whole time that was actually going at track speed too. This is the Southwest Chief coming in. And it's funny because the train is so long for the platform, they actually have to stop it twice. So they stopped for the sleeper cars first. So I got on first, and then they did another stop for the coach class passengers as well very shortly after. Next day was the only full day I spent on the train, going from La Plata through Colorado and New Mexico, and into Arizona in the evening, and through some of the most desolate and also some of the prettiest scenery I've ever seen, going on the old Santa Fe's Super Chief main line, which still has semaphore signals on a Class 1 railroad, which is very impressive to see in 2024.
Yeah, they're disappearing, though, slowly.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad I saw them when I did, because I have a bad feeling that the ones I've got in the photos here have since been replaced in the month that I haven't been there. And this is how I spent my evening in the roomette, and one of the prettiest sunsets I've ever seen when we were going across the desert through Arizona. It was a good way to end that day. Next day was coming into Los Angeles. This is July 7th by this point. So we came in, and I was only in LA for about an hour and a half, and I'll be honest, it wasn't the best experience I've ever had. But the icing on the cake was going up the Pacific coastline during that morning. It's a very, very pretty section of track, and John, I know you've been there a couple of times. It's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, I've never actually taken the train down the coast or up the coast, believe it or not.
Right.
It's one of those. Yeah, it's one of the things on the list that I'd like to do.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Oh, sure, but I've spent plenty of time around those areas.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the Central Coast is very pretty.
Yeah, and here's evidence of that. That was when we were climbing up Cuesta Grade with a pair of Chargers on the front, which I'd never been behind a Charger before this point, so it's good to tick that off the list too. They're not that great, but I think they look pretty cool.
You know, they're a lot quieter than the P-42s.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Did the AC on the trains keep up with the summer heat? Surprisingly, yes, they did actually. Yeah. I was kind of worried when it did get a bit hotter when I came back to California that the AC was going to give out on one of the trains, but I was pretty impressed. They stayed put pretty well. So that I'll go back to this one. So that evening I went through San Jose and up to Sacramento, and I got there just after midnight. And when we passed through Emeryville on the way up there, that basically completed the cross country trip, and I was very, very happy with that. And I celebrated by going up to the cafe car and getting a ginger ale.
Hey, you know, if I'd known you were going to go through on the Starlight one of those evenings, I could have gone out and give you another mooning experience.
I should have let you know, though. I really should have.
Yeah, I could have filmed the train going by at least, right?
Yeah. That's all right. Of course, we think about it now instead of then.
Yeah, we'll do it next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Next day, the whole reason I went to Sacramento first before I went back down to San Jose was my original plan was to for July 8th, which was this day, was to be my final day in America. And something changed that, and I'll get to that in a bit. So spent the morning visiting the California State Railroad Museum, which is seriously one of the best railway museums I've ever been to. It's absolutely brilliant, and getting to see the cab forward and a couple of the other engines, like the classic old pre-1900 engines like number 12 there, and V&T 13 on the mirrors. Very, very impressive museum. And also got to see 2467 and 281. 2467 was an engine was one of the first engines I saw on videos when they were preparing to restore it back in 1991. So to come full circle and actually be seeing the engine in the shed outside the museum was very, very cool. So that evening, I went back south to San Jose and met up with a dodgy bloke by the name of John Abatacola.
I heard about that guy.
Oh, I know, right?
You actually hung out with that loser?
Yeah. So the next day, I was very lucky enough that that John had organised for us to go visit a whole heap of layouts that are in the San Jose area, and I'd seen on layout tours or at least heard about them before I went over to the States. So got to see Jim Diaz's 1938 Western Pacific layout, which is a very, very cool layout. I've never seen the Feather River Canyon done in HO scale before that, so it was really cool to see that. And also checked out Jack Burgess's Yosemite Valley layout, which is seriously there's a layout back in Australia that I was telling John about, which in my eyes, before I came to America to do this trip, I'd always thought that layout was the best. But then when we went to Jack Burgess's place, that overtook it.
You changed your mind, huh?
I did, very much so. The detailing is insane on that layout. I'm really impressed.
I think you said that in the car when we got out of the house. We had speechless.
Yeah, I was in shock.
Yeah. I don't want to steal your thunder here, Lucas, but the bottom left pictures look like you're back in Colorado again.
Yeah. Very much so. Dave Adams's Derlin branch, one of the biggest ON3 layouts I'd ever seen, and one of the best Rio Grande layouts I've ever seen as well. And the locos runs absolutely superbly, and I'm indebted to Dave for letting me have a drive of that engine, on that layout. It was good fun. And then after that, visited Bob Poley's Westside Lumber Company layout. And I was even more speechless with that one because I model G scale, but outdoors and with no scenery. This guy has gone out of this world with his layout, with scratch-built shays and scenery all around his layout. Just absolutely superb. So yeah, I'm very much indebted to John for organising that, and so thanks very much, mate. It was a great day, that one.
Oh yeah, it was great to hang out.
Yeah, it was really good fun.
Yeah, but don't worry, it just takes a while for the bill to show up because it has to get to.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it.
We sent it the cheap way, so it's on a ship somewhere right now. We're trying to get to Australia.
So that evening we went up to Santa Clara to see some Caltrain action before the electrics came in, which I understand they came in pretty recently, didn't they, John?
Well, what they're doing now is they're running both. They have electric interspersed with diesel, or the other way around, depending how you look at it. Right. And 1 month from today, on September the 21st, they're going to go to all electric. So we're pretty excited about that.
Wow. Yeah, that's really good.
And so the nice thing about it, Lucas, is that now we actually have a chance to see them together.
Yes.
And I've got to tell you, I know I mentioned when we were there, didn't we see one electric train go through when we were there? Do you remember?
We didn't see one go through, but I think we saw one stop somewhere, but I don't remember where it was.
Okay. I thought
Yeah.
we had seen one go through, but what I was going to tell you is that we can see them running now, and you may get a diesel on this stop, and the next train through may be an electric one. And
That's pretty cool options.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. The neat thing about it is watching the electric trains take off out of the station.
Oh,
And
yeah.
before the last car reaches the end of the platform, they're at speed. I mean, they accelerate really fast, and the diesels.
I remember you showing me the video of it. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, the diesels don't even come close to that level of acceleration. It's really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a good evening watching trains there. And not only did we see some Caltrain, but we saw some Ace trains and this Union Pacific Light engine move come through as well with a couple more SD59s. And then next day, I've done 2 different days here, and because of that, there's a bit of a spoiler alert at the bottom right corner. Said farewell to John and boarded my train back up to Sacramento because the date on this day was July 10th. And the following day, Big Boy 4014 was scheduled to come through Sacramento. And I'm going to do this in Celsius. That day was 45 degrees Celsius, and that's about 116 Fahrenheit. It was the hottest day I'd ever experienced rail fanning, but it was worth it to see the Big Boy. It was so cool. And that was the only thing I did that day was because I was in the air conditioning for the rest of it because I wasn't going to couldn't bear being in the heat, but I had to for about 4 hours because I had to walk through it to get to the spot.
Yeah, that weekend, Lucas, we haven't really spoken since I saw you. I mean, not much, but weekend when they left to leave California, we went up to Donner Pass, as you probably know from the podcast.
Yeah.
And caught it there, and it was hot up there too. Not as hot. It wasn't 116, but it was pretty hot. Yeah,
it was up there.
Yeah. So that's but that's one of those things where it doesn't matter how hot it is. It's something that may never happen again. We don't know.
That's right.
So you just go, right?
Yeah. I was glad I pushed my flight back just to see that because I pushed it back by 5 days.
Yeah, and that gave us a chance to hang out too. So that was
That's
cool.
right. So it was worth pushing the flight back for both. So yeah. And then we got one more slide and then we're done.
Oh wow.
So that evening it was so July 11th was my final full day in America. And the following day I had actually originally intended to go up to Roseville to see the Big Boy on display. But unfortunately I was going to be catching the Zephyr up there. Only one stop, 25 minute trip. But unfortunately, Sacramento was the place where one of the P-42s failed and they were delayed by 7.5 hours there. So I didn't end up going to Roseville, which I was a bit bummed out about, but I'm kind of glad I didn't because with the amount of people there and also the heat was about as hot as the day before, it probably wasn't going to be worth it. So I spent the day in the waiting room at Sacramento and then headed back down to Emeryville to finish my trip after I think the total amount of kilometers I did on that trip when I arrived back into Emeryville that evening was 11,711 kilometers.
That's a hell of a trip.
So 37 days. And
that doesn't even count the trip over here from Australia. You add those, right?
Yep.
Add those in, it's another 32,000.
Easy. Yep.
Yeah.
And that evening was on board the plane back to Melbourne, and I arrived back on Sunday, July 14th, ending one heck of a trip. So yeah,
you filled those days with a lot of fun.
Absolutely,
that looked great.
It was such a good trip.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, considering how much of a trip it was and how tiring it must have been, when's the next one?
I don't know.
No plans yet?
None set in stone. I definitely want to go back to the US. There's no doubt about that. When, I'm not sure. It could be, it could be in a couple of years. We'll see.
I would suggest doing the northern portion of the Starlight and then take the Cascades across the upper portion of the United States. It's a lot to see there. Or for that matter, go all the way up into Canada. Go up to Canada and take the Mountaineer.
Yeah.
But that's a bit more expensive.
No, I'll just do the Canadian instead.
There you go. Yeah.
How many big boys have you seen in person? I only saw 2 on this trip. It was 4023 when I was going through Omaha, and then it was 4014 when I was going through Sacramento. But I'm glad I can say I've seen 2.
Yeah, that was a hell of a trip. You know, I knew that it was a big trip, and I knew you'd been to a lot of different places, including in the eastern part of the country, but I did not realize just how far you went until just now seeing your presentation. That was really crazy. I would have been really homesick probably by the second week, you know. Did you experience much of that, or was there any times when you're like, yeah, I just wish I could be home, you know? Or did you were you so excited about all the trains that it didn't matter?
It was a combination. Like, I was excited about the trains from day 1 to day 37. There was no doubt about that. I think by the time I was with you, though, I was getting a little over the trip. I was ready to come home. But
I get there on the Zephyr at about, I don't know, Iowa.
Yeah.
Send me home. Okay. Yeah. Though honestly, I don't remember if it goes close enough, but if you could ever get off at Bailey Yard, which is in the dead center practically of Nebraska, that is just amazing.
That's North Plata.
What?
North Plata?
I think it's a little bit east of that. Does anybody remember?
Dave probably knows.
Who?
Dave probably knows.
Yeah,
where
Dave.
That is. Hey, Dave, where's North Platte in relation to Bailey?
Bailey Yard, yeah.
He'll
I've definitely heard it both, but I can't remember where Bailey Yard is.
Yeah, I was driving across the United States from Michigan across, and
wow,
I started getting through there. I'm like, I should stop at Bailey Yard. I'll probably never come this way again.
Yeah.
And it was stellar.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So in case anybody's interested in seeing more, at least for the part of the trip when you were here, I documented that on a podcast. I think it was the podcast for July, wasn't it? Something like that.
August.
Was it August podcast? Yeah. Documented that part of the trip where Lucas was here, so you can see a little bit of the layouts that he mentioned. I've done layout tour videos of every layout that he talked about, except for Bob Poley's West Side. I would really like to make a video of his layout because it deserves to be documented, but two, it would really inspire a lot of people seeing what Bob has done with all of his scratch building at such a large scale.
100%.
Yeah. So,
and one other thing as well, I'm currently uploading the videos of my trip onto YouTube as well. My channel is 762 Media, so bit in depth, got a bit of history. So yeah, I'm currently uploading wise. I'm only in Colorado still. So Chicago, but I think it's going to be about December by the time I've got them all uploaded. But
yeah, it's funny. I'm not sure that I ever knew about your channel. So when I go back to type up a description for this video, send me the link to your channel and I'll add that so people can just click on the link in the description below, because I think it's worth showing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And especially if you show stuff on your channel, like of Puffing Billy, like the climax and other stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check that out sometime. Why
Yeah, no worries. I thought I sent you a link to it, but that's all right. All good.
I don't think so.
I like interlinked model railroad sites. I go click happy, so it's a good thing to have.
Yeah, he'll go down the rabbit hole of looking at Australian trains next time when he watches the replay, because he likes to watch himself.
That's my kink.
It'll be me as well, Murf. Don't worry.
No, it'll be good seeing more stuff. So yeah, thanks.
No worries. Absolutely.
Well, since we have some time here, if you want to hang around for a few minutes,
no worries.
I'm kind of curious to learn more about Australian railroads and Australian railroading, because I've never been there to Australia, and I know it's a huge, huge country. I think it's
about the same size as the US.
Yeah, I was going to say it's at least as big as the US, which is, it's big. So it's different for you, right? As compared to maybe someone in Perth. Like, what would people see in Australia if they came there to do some foaming?
If you wanted to see steam, it would be on the East Coast. So like Victoria, New South Wales, and Queensland. All the majority of the heritage operations are here. We're very lucky in that we've got very healthy mainline steam programs in Victoria and New South Wales, with trips happening pretty close to every second weekend almost.
Oh, wow. On a mainline?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, huh.
And
I didn't know that.
In Victoria, we've got, I think it's 9 locos mainline certified at the moment.
Wow.
And like they're not like, we've got a combination of, there's one little 060 built in 1889 that's still mainline certified. And then we've also got a whole heap of like big 464 Hudsons and couple of 10-wheelers. Like in New South Wales, they've got a Bay Garrett operating on the main line, which is basically a combination of a 484, 484, but as a Garrett and running on the main line. Just insane, that machine.
What gauge are all these?
So New South Wales is standard gauge, 4 foot 8.5, so same as you guys. But down in Victoria, we're broad gauge, 1600 mil. So
what is that in feet?
5'3".
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that is broad. Wow. Okay.
Irish broad gauge. Yep.
Yeah. That's very broad gauge.
South Australia has also got a whole heap of heritage railway stuff as well. There's another broad gauge tourist railway called Steam Ranger, which runs through the Adelaide Hills from Mount Barker down to Victor Harbour. And there's also another railway up in the desert almost desert, called the Pitchy Ritchie Railway, which is 3 foot 6 gauge. And their operation is incredible. They just celebrated 50 years of operations 2 weeks ago. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. I had no idea there was so much to see.
But very, very lucky.
Yeah, but a lot of it's really far apart, though, isn't it? I mean, you say East Coast, but it's a big East Coast.
Yes. Yep.
Right. And don't they have another one out in Tasmania, which is an island, isn't it?
Yeah, the island state of Tasmania. They used to have mainline steam until 2005. But they still have like I think it's half a dozen tourist railways down there, and majority have steam. So, yeah.
Yeah, there was a guy from Tasmania named Rowan Kinane that used to send me pictures from, well, you probably know. I don't remember now.
Was it Don River?
Don River, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, he used to send me.
That's a childhood favorite railway of mine.
Have you actually been there?
Oh, when I was like really young, yeah.
Okay. Well, to me, you are really young. I was going to say.
Younger than this.
Right. Oh, you mean last year?
So how about foaming freight operations, modern freight operations, and that kind of stuff?
So the short answer to that is it's very similar to the US in regards to what we carry. So we've got a lot of intermodal trains. The quantity is nowhere near as much as you guys. But the lengths of the trains are pretty much the same.
Oh.
We follow very similar operating practices. We've just got smaller engines, but that's all right.
But don't you just use more?
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're still using EMD streamliners too on a lot of grain trains at the moment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so home built engines, but under license from GM. So some of them were even built as 3,000 horsepower turbocharged locos in the early 70s, and they were the very last.
Like the E units?
Yeah, E units just with SD40 prime movers. So
Okay.
they've got a lot of guts, those things.
Yeah.
That must be kind
That'd
of
be
cool to
fun
look
to
at.
see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
And what else do we have? Over in the northwestern part of Australia, in the Pilbara, there's also a whole heap of iron ore operations. We've actually got the world record for the longest freight train ever to operate, and it was 7 kilometers long.
What is that, like 3 miles?
3.5.
Pretty much. Yep.
Yeah.
Geez.
And the locos we get for that are actually imported from America. So a whole heap of AC44s, SD70s. We've got the lot.
What's the GON? Do you know what that is? That goes across the desert or something?
So speaking of which,
is that what's there?
That's what it used to look like. It's a transcontinental passenger train. We've got 2. So there's one that goes from Adelaide to Darwin, which is the GAN, and then we've also got the Indian Pacific, which goes from Sydney to Perth, which, as the name implies, goes from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. So yeah, one heck of a trip, those two. I've never been on either, but yeah, I'd love to do those at one point.
Yeah, isn't the center of Australia really desolate though? Like, isn't there like nothing there?
Pretty much. Yeah, the entire center of Australia is pretty much desert.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the U.S. is desert in the middle too, but we've populated it anyway.
You guys have just got more people.
Yeah. Shoot, that's
because our population in total, including Tasmania, is 25 million.
Yeah, I think we're in the hundreds here, 350 or something.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit more people, quite a few.
Mm.
I was going to ask you another question, and I kind of flubbed on it. I have this thing where I can't remember anything. Wait a minute. Oh, your name is printed on the screen. Oh, it's Lucas. Okay.
Yeah.
No, just self-deprecating humor here.
All right.
I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you about. It was about model railroads in Australia. You said that there was one that you thought was, a top-notch railroad. What are the models like in the model layouts that you have there? Are there a lot of them, or do people?
We've got quite a few. Quantity, like the amount, is nowhere near as much as you guys, but the quality is pretty close to the same, I reckon. The bloke I was talking about, he had an ON30 layout of Puffing Billy, and he based it in like the 1920s or so, and the quality of it was absolutely insane. Like, he went to the nth detail. It was, like I said, it was pretty close to Jack Burgess's. But Jack just went to another level, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it was an absolutely superb layout. Unfortunately, it's no longer in its original location, but the layout itself is still around, thank goodness. So, yeah.
So are people modeling mostly Australian prototype there, or is it a mix, or is it a lot of West? Because I know there's a lot of Western U.S. railroad, or Western North America, if you will, railroad fans around the world. And I know, like a friend of ours, Dave, was just mentioning on our chat here that our friend Rod is in a club that models the Delaware and Hudson. So what's been your, or I mean, do you see a lot of model railroads?
We've been involved with model railway stuff for, as a family, we've been involved with it for about 40 years. And
do you have a layout too?
We've got a few, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we've got HO, ON30, and G scale as well for the live steam stuff.
Do you put that stuff on your YouTube channel as well?
We haven't really. It's just a hobby of ours. We haven't really done videos of them, but
send me some pictures. I'd love to see the model.
Yeah, absolutely, no worries. Yeah,
no, that would be fun.
Well, you know that photo of the of my live steam puffing Billy model I sent in for the latest one. Yeah, that's on our G scale one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that was yours. I mean, I knew it was your equipment, but I didn't know it was your layout. I thought.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe you did, and I just forgot too.
That's right.
Like I said, I can't remember much. So these days, so
all good.
I don't know. You know, it's funny. The older I get, the worse that problem becomes, and I don't know if it's because my hard drive in here is full and it's trying to reprocess all the junk that I don't need. Like I can still remember my phone number from when I was a kid. I don't need that. I remember my best friend's phone number from when I was a kid. I don't need that. But I can't get rid of it and make room for other more important stuff, like whether or not you have a layout at home. Yeah, that's great. Well, sir, we're not getting a lot of questions in the comment section. Do you have any other questions?
No, I'm good. Yeah, this was a great tour. Or thank you.
No worries. Thanks for having me. I'll do one more plug if that's all right.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Look, we just lost this.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. Did we freeze when you were just talking?
Yes.
I didn't hear your plug. Could you please repeat it?
I didn't even say it, so that was good.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So another YouTube channel I run with my cousin is called Down the Line, and we do like a behind the scenes on rail fanning. I mentioned it to you, John, when I was there. We don't really upload that much anymore because we're both busy with full-time jobs. But it's a behind the scenes of rail fanning with majority of the time we were chasing steam specials and a couple on the main line, which are good fun to film. Very chaotic, but So if you want to check it out, it's called Down the Line.
So is it along the lines of like a chasing trains, but something like that? But do you goof off like we do for chasing trains, or is it mostly train stuff?
The inspiration was from chasing trains, but we don't goof off as much.
Well, I mean, that would be hard because all we do
is
peak and aspire.
Yeah. You got to work on your goofing off game. If you come back out here, I haven't been doing a lot of chasing trains videos. But if you come back out here and you want to do one, we'll do one Australian style or something. And
sounds good.
We can have Australian lessons or something during the chasing trains episode as a way to goof off.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Cool. Well, sir,
that's tight set.
Do you know that person?
Yeah, I do know him.
Oh,
he's another very popular YouTuber. You should check him out.
Oh, excellent. I haven't heard that before. I'll have to look for that later. Anyway, right? Hello. With that, I think we'll go. This is unusual. We usually go over time and not ending before the time is up. But that'll give us a chance to catch up a little bit after the music plays, though, Lucas.
No worries.
I do want to thank you. I learned a lot about your trip, and now that I know that you're a YouTuber more seriously than I knew, we could do another show sometime where you get to show some video stuff. That could be a lot of fun.
Sounds good. I'm down for that.
We could even do some chasing trains Australian style on Down the Line or something if somehow. Just got to figure out how to make it happen.
No worries.
Could be a lot of fun. So thank you very much for your time and coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And I also would like to thank the chat moderators. I don't always do that, but anytime I can remember to thank them, they keep the chat in line on our little screen on the right side there where people are talking. And that helps the stream a lot. And I don't remember what's coming out on this Saturday, but every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time, we have another feature on the YouTube channel. And I would be remiss. Sorry, Lucas. Thanks for hanging out while I'm doing all my plugging. I would be remiss if I didn't mention to people that you can also help support the channel by signing up to be a Patreon member on our Patreon presence. And that's at www.patreon.com/TSG Multimedia. It's as cheap as $2 a month, but everyone who signs up gets sneak peeks, and we have a special channel set up where all the featured presentations come out in ultra high definition and without ads. Ask him, he knows.
Yes, they're all available there.
Yeah.
Well, of course, I have YouTube Premium, but yes, you can do it that way, and they're 4K. Or,
YouTube Premium, Patreon is the way to go.
That's right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks, Lucas, and thanks everybody.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you. Yep, we'll see you next time.
Okay.